Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Danae, and I'm here with a message for you. Happy Thursday. I hope you are doing well. It's August 29th, 2024. How's your day going? By the time you watch this, it'll probably almost be Friday. So I guess I should say, how was your day? I hope it was good. Got the window open. It's a fantastic breeze outside right now. I think it's supposed to rain, well, it's been threatening rain, but it hasn't done so yet. But on cue, the rustle of the trees, I'm sure you can hear. Feels amazing. But let's see what we have here today. Don't forget about the summer soul sale. Information in the description box below. Check it out. Hit me up. Let's see. Wow, Wheel of Fortune. Some big fated event, major fated event. Let's see. Wow, moving into it with victory. Moving into it successfully, maybe having accomplished a great deal behind you to gain access to something. This is like a portal. That's what that looks like to me. That sounded like a motorcycle. Yeah, moving. This is like victory after battle. Wow, here with the 9 of Wands. And now moving on to claim the spoils of your of your success. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie, this feels like here. Yeah, yep. That's exactly what that is. You going into like or having gone through, I'm hearing like a rent cycle. Oh shoot, I've left my fan on. I'm sorry if you hear that clicking in the background. I don't feel like getting up or calling my son to turn it off, but hopefully you can excuse it. I forgot to turn it off. And today of all days, I don't even really need it on because the breeze is just fine. I just forgot. But the Wheel of Fortune, yeah, like a rent cycle. So maybe like almost cleansing your energy of the stains from war or the stains from battle. And this is like, a benevolent, oh, I just heard it, baptized energy. So being baptized in celestial waters, what? Coming out crispy clean with the High Priestess. And this is the justice of the divine. Like, this is how balance is being restored for those that have fought the good fight to the bitter end, and it has been bitter. This rent cycle, so to speak, is almost like purifying everything. It's like filtering the filthy rags off of you. You know, the blood-stained, blood-soaked armor. Yeah, something about that hair. It's real intense what I'm hearing in concept. But look how pristine. It's like everything that's being rinsed from your force field, perhaps, maybe even from your memory. I don't know. Certainly from your muscle memory, for sure, but maybe actually your memory, because the Nine of Wands can sometimes like represent like a PTSD or some type of mental or energetic imbalance on account of what's been incurred of the past. The Six of Wands is having overcome, like almost recovered from this state of being, and now kind of live to almost tell your war stories, you know, but and the Six of Wands is also like reward and recognition. It's like whatever it is that you have overcome, or someone has overcome at this Nine of Wands, is captivating. Like it's a testimony that people want to hear. They want to know, like, how did you go from here to here? And in number, it feels like, you know, it doesn't feel like that great of a jump from the 9 to the 7. As a matter of fact, it almost could be revered as a regression. But look at the difference in posture and presence. You know, what may have appeared to be a regression on the outside looking in at some point in time, maybe even a setback to many, has turned out to be a victory, has proven itself to be a victory now to most, if not yet at some point. And then the Wheel of Fortune, as I said, is like now taking all of that energy into this cycle here through this portal, and it almost being like burned off of you. It's a purifying fire, though. It's not a harmful one. It's cleansing. That ultimately puts you in this position here as the High Priestess, where like your I'm hearing your soul becomes golden. What does that mean? Because that's what fire can do. You know, when I was saying, you know, this purifying fire, it was reading to me energetically the way that it's transformative to turn matter into something else, particularly like gold being refined in the fire, diamonds made from pressure. I don't think they're flamed, but I'm pretty sure gold is a thing that is refined in fire. And then I'm seeing this energy here with the high priestess as being like a sparkling emergence of a spiritual human being. Like it's goddess energy. That's what it is. It's the integration of your most supreme self with your human nature. And you would have had to have gone through the fire and through you know, you would have had to have cleared some oh, that's what it is. It's a clearing of karma. So you would have had to have gone through this process here to emerge in this way, to be the best of spirit and flesh. You wouldn't have needed the flesh part, right? For that to be tried and tested and again purified by the flames, trialed by the fire. Already being a spiritual being, whether it was known or unknown, that's absolute. It's the humanity that is the greatest challenge, really. And so to have ultimately like overcome that feat in an extremely successful way to the approval of universal standards, clearly with the Wheel of Fortune here, to have this be the outcome is confirmation that there has been approval, that something has been done well at this state, at the point of judgment, you know, in the process of judgment, that someone has done quite well, has pleased the universal order in a way to then be transformed, maybe even restored unto the spiritual frequency, the fullest spiritual frequency of their identity on a celestial level, like almost calling it down or calling it in. Because whatever has been done in the human nature of a being has ultimately whatever work has been done, whatever transmutation has occurred in the human being is what has made that vessel conducive to host supreme spiritual presence. It's like your supreme self can exist beyond you, you know, almost outside of you, or maybe beside you. However it is, there's not an absolute convergence of those energies simply on command, you know, or even demand. There has to be a processing of the flesh in order for the vessel to be conducive for that integration. Because it's like such a supreme essence can only be welcome in the 3D space in a vessel that is safe for it to exist. and it's only safe for it to exist operating at the highest frequency of human capability possible, having cleared out a great deal of the karma, the gook, the grime, the trash, the toxicity, the trauma, the fear, the guilt, the shame, the insecurity, the imbalances that are like a natural, or at least have been, at this point, like almost a natural occurrence of human nature, like the iniquity of humanity, of which we're born through, and we come to, and then are conditioned by, so having to break all of that away, like I said, it's like the filthy rags effect, and even the symbolism of baptism in a very spiritual sense, like certainly not exclusive to a religious sacrament. I'm talking about like from the inside out, a flushing of the soul has either happened or is happening. And this is the being that is exalted from the flames. This is what remains. The high priestess being like the bride of Christ, the mother of Christ, the daughter of God, the heart of the master, so to speak, that open channel of creation, and also the conduit of creation by way of her womb. Like it's everything. It's everything. And now this is a destined and fated event that's been prophesied, indeed, but it's also been resisted a great deal, because creation in any singular or collective way was never supposed to make it through this process to this portal and be rendered as righteously as this frequency sits here. There was ultimately every resistance, every interference and detour and disturbance and method of destruction deployed as the enemy, right? To ultimately defeat the sheer possibility of a fulfilled prophecy such as this before it could even be realized, meaning even conceived of in the mind, conceptualized mentally, spiritually, that the feminine force particularly has been the target of a great deal of abuse to suppress and depress this evolution from ever occurring, because as long as that force could be kept as depleted as humanly possible, it would ultimately deter the healing process from happening in a way that would put that energy in a position to get to this place. The intention was to always be here at the Nine of Wands, always wounded, always worried, always defeated, always imbalanced, always burdened by the past, always in distress, always at war, always in battle, and with no relief in sight. But what wasn't anticipated was for there to be a victory over disempowerment, and that feminine energy would begin slowly but surely, and then suddenly, seemingly out of nowhere, in an accelerated way, to call her power back, to reclaim her natural essence, to reestablish a standard of order for herself, to reaffirm her own identity. To accept defeat where it where it seemed to be, but also to transmute, again, alchemically transmute that energy as a victory. So recognizing the disfavor and perhaps misfortune or unfortunate affairs of your truth, but still taking that energy and repurposing it for a forward march, pretty much, for forward motion, to advance, to ascend, to evolve. All that was done before even getting to this portal of Wheel of Fortune, where now the universe is like backing it up. And I think it's like there was always universal presence and covering, of course, but there was also so much interference that, I don't know, that's the part I'm still working out in terms of why things were left unchecked, seemingly in such, an intensive way. Because we know the Creator is all powerful, and if it was a matter of just stepping in and stopping an interference or an influence in its tracks, then it would, right? If it could, but can it? I don't know. Like, that's the thing. Or was it all a part of the plan? A part of the fate that was yet to unfold, the prophecy to behold in process. I tend to feel it's more of that, and everything is in order. Yeah, here with the Justice card, everything's in order and in balance. So even as I say, interference and interruptions and disturbances and so on and so forth, I do feel like even that was used purposefully, or even placed purposely, for the intentions of fueling this process of sorts that became almost like a spirit meal of, in a way where there would have needed to be something to evolve creation back to its origins. How else could it have been with, almost like the conditioning itself being the flex of those spiritual muscles? Because how else could it could it have been so if not for the resistance, So anyway, but astounding still nonetheless, though, because it's not set up for everyone to make it out. Certainly not set up for everyone to be victorious and successful without corruption, right? It's already a challenge. And then, of course, if there was some heightened interception of corruption where it wasn't truly sanctioned to be, where there were some boundaries overstepped, then consider that an extra layer of difficulty, which raises, the astonishment that much more, yet again, that what should have been depleting and completely defeating, some were still able to fight their way out of. And that the balance of the universe is that must be rewarded and that energy must be restored. Like, why else? What else would there be? What else is left? More war? It's a different battle now. It's not like the strategies have evolved. How does that get to be? If I sense that, and I've kind of said this before, that the new frontier is the frequency of sovereignty and maintaining, that reality and fully flexing in that liberty when or within a world that has not fully realized that truth. That's what it is. It's like having the keys to an evolved realization of creation, but those keys are at this time exclusive, not because they're not accessible, but because everyone hasn't necessarily fulfilled their personal process as required to acquire them. And so there's this duality of reality that exists where the truth that the high priestess assumes and asserts looks almost like extraterrestrial, like alien-like to the world that she still inhabits. It's like a world within a world that's happening or is about to. I don't know how this gets to actually play out, and if maybe perhaps it already is, you know, but that is the new frontier for your faith, is to stay grounded in what you have established to be so and to be true when the rest of the world from the outside looking in may even like perceive you to be delusional or crazy or out of touch, or, you know, like whatever. Not everybody, because to some it'll be an inspiration to aspire to, but to many, I would say, more than not, it may be a bit of a spectacle to be heckled to some degree. But that's nothing, that's the thing, that's like, if you've gone through this process here, that's nothing that you're not already used to. So it's like, you know, no sweat off your back, really, not really, you know. You've gone through the worst of it, the hardest of the challenge, with less resources and less support to do so. I feel like the crossover challenge is having so much favor and so much fortune at your fingertips, living in the reality of that, contending with the propensity to feel almost like a survivor's guilt, or even an obligation to dispense your favor and fortune amongst those that probably still have a great deal of criticism and judgment toward it, but maintaining an abstinence, like an abstinence to do so for the purposes of protecting it for the future. Because what I'm seeing, what I'm seeing is that the favor and fortune and the transfer of wealth and power that's about to take place for a faithful few is like a holding space, you know. That those that have been entrusted with a great deal of spiritual affluence, maybe even material affluence, are keepers of it to manage it wisely and also to multiply it, but again, almost as like a nest egg while the rest of creation catches up. So this energy is building, is creating, is birthing revolutionary concepts, of which, as I said, some, you know, that look upon may not even really be connected to, like, it's ahead of the time, you know. But as the rest of creation has an opportunity to catch up at their will, there's going to need to be something to catch up to, because what's happening in the frequency of the old world is things are being cleared, destroyed, dilapidated, and righteously so, a lot of things are being leveled to make space for a new light, you know, that for many is at the end of a tunnel of healing and transformation. You know, that's people still got to get through, you know, this ring of fire themselves. But like I said, all the while, the new world is under construction. And so it's like almost like that scripture with Nehemiah, and I don't know if that's true, because I feel like there's some cleansing of the mentality of the fight as it existed as well that still is happening, even with those that are transforming and ascending into this into these positions. But what I'm seeing is that scripture in Nehemiah where they talk about rebuilding the wall and how they had to have a sword in one hand and a tool in the other. So you almost have to be defensive while you're building, defensive while you're creating. And in this case, it's against those that would want to kind of like tear it down while it's in the process, mainly because they feel threatened by it and because they don't understand it, that it provokes something in their own personal insecurities and the complacency that they feel possessive of, you know, of the world that is known, which won't allow them to, in some cases, and some people, to gracefully submit to what is mysterious just yet. Maybe with time, maybe not everyone, certainly not all at once, but I hold space for, you know, in faith that as many as have been chosen to come through this way, by way of whatever covenant they're already attached to, whether they know it or not, will do so in their own time. And that the only thing for the turnover of those evolving and ascending to do is to just stay focused, like keep facing forward, looking toward the future, and being fixated on whatever purpose-driven path you're journeying on, that there really isn't any room to do much else. You know, least you be distracted. Like that kind of is the weapon of defense, so to speak, is like your integrity and devotion to your path. Least you be distracted, thrown off course, and be susceptible to attack or you know, to abuse or entrapment in some type of way. But otherwise, like there's great favor over the builders and creators of the new world, not because the universe plays favorites, but because there's a great work to be done to bridge the gap in the transition. And it's like, well, if you gonna do it, then you'll have the support of the divine to see it through. Recognizing that to even get to a position of consideration at this point, remember, I'm saying to be conducive of the energy that you would need to conduct to be successful in this new age, means that you've had a great deal of professional and creative experience in humanity already that has built a pretty impressive resume. Not everybody can say that, not everybody wants to say that, not everybody will say that, but for those that have, there's a premium position for you. And fortunately, literally with the Wheel of Fortune, the pay and the benefits are spectacular. But that's because there's an assignment attached to that as well. You're going to need the resources, you're going to need the wealth, the abundance, the support to carry out your assignment. Let's see, we got the Page of Wands, and wow, look at that. Look at that turn over there. The Page of Wands facing the King of Wands. This is literally like facing your inner child. And this is the transition of healing that must have taken place, where you were a ward of creation or a ward of the creator to then becoming an emancipated creator, or a ward of creation to becoming an emancipated creator, where you were either deferring your power to other forces and sources, where you were unaware, or just not evolved in the knowledge of your creativity, to this like light year jump here of where you are master of your force, operating in the authority of your greatest creative energy and confidence and security, with wisdom and also with self-control. That's what happened here in this transition, where life was happening to you, and here life is happening through you and for you. Wow. What's on the bottom? What? That's a big confirmation. Damn, this reading is interesting. From this most, like literally a ward of creation. That's what this is depicting here. Seed of creation, a child of the divine, already marked, and like it's in your DNA. This level of light is already in your, like encrypted in your being. And you're encrypted in your energy signature. Yeah, something like that. But it wasn't known, of course, because, and I've talked about this in other messages before, of the corruption that happens through birth, through that portal, of which I feel is something that's being exposed. The secrets of the universe are being exposed. If not to all, definitely, maybe that's the keys that I'm talking about, like to select sources that can, more or less have proven to be trustworthy, to be keepers of that knowledge and conduits of it, that know what to say and what not to say, or how to express it, or have a unique way of expression that makes it plain and clear, makes, perhaps really sophisticated spiritual concepts simple to grasp. I don't know, something like that. But either way, this is like literally being a child of the divine, a child of the sun. And as I said, there's a distortion and a corruption that happens through the portal of birth and that birth canal, whereas where you lose your memory of yourself. And I don't think that's always what it was supposed to be in the regenerative process of creation. I believe we were supposed to come and go more or less as we please. But there has been a corruption of that Stargate where passage is not so free flowing, and it's actually corrupted where certain energies have taken liberty to there's that interference and that interruption again, to take liberty over, like to almost guard that gate and filter forces as they see fit, you know? So whereas maybe you're supposed to come back in a certain form or a certain frequency, or directly maybe as you were, or into a certain family, or in a certain place at your will, where that was a sovereign power that could be assumed by the soul itself, is that transition has been corrupted, and the power of that process was almost like what's the right word, like occupied by enemy forces that had an ulterior motive to corrupt it for their own benefit, to basically control where those powers end up, where they go, and that, you know, manipulating people's destinies and lives, and, you know, putting you in dire straits when you're supposed to come here a king or a queen, or wealthy and well off, or putting you in a traumatic cycle when you've already paid all your karmic debt, or continuing to put you, like I said, in a cycle of karmic recreation that is unjustified, like downright unlawful. There could have been a lot of that happening, but either way, I kind of digress a little bit. It's something about the exposure and the enlightenment of the truth that's being revealed and unveiled to those that can ultimately handle it and hold it honorably. And some are charged to either disseminate it wisely, or to ingest it and activate, initiate an agenda, or activate creation on account of what they know, what's been kept, what secrets have been hidden and concealed, distorted information, even outright lies and illusions that have been dispensed, where again, you were here at the Page of Wands and now full-fledged operating in your power at the King of Wands, because to some degree, your power has been reclaimed. And I feel like that's on a great deal, and on account to not just your own personal awareness, but the enlightenment of creation overall, your place in it, or out of it, and, you know, the big picture of the landscape of life as we know it. There's something here about an advancement in that passion that is being pronounced between these two cards that would just pretty much like solidify your foundation of confidence and self-esteem eternally. Like there couldn't be a recreation of a karmic cycle at this point in juncture, with all that you know about yourself, all that you've been enlightened to, all the evidence you have of your evolution, your origin first and foremost, and then your evolution, and even the intuitive or even prophetic projection of your potential and the impact that it gets to make universally. Like all of this is like, oh my gosh, it's powerful. It's I feel like I just want to say more, but it's like, it's, Again, it's like another energy that gets to conduct through human form. This is what that's represented with the King of Wands, because of that filtering process where you can actually sustain the light of the sun. Think about how hot it was this summer, how close the sun has been feeling to the earth, the solar flares even that have been consistently engaging our atmosphere. As above, so below. That force is conducting through human beings, which is going to ultimately open the floodgates to some degree of supernatural exhibition through human powers. Again, creating the spectacle of which some may be inspired and some may be offended. Some may be threatened. I even picked up the energy of, like, I heard like Christian crusades of how the powers that be may try to reignite that frequency to, weaponize organized religion, specifically Christian, Christian religion, to attack spirituality. Already has happened, but to, like, again, regenerate that karmic cycle all over again in a different way though now, because the powers that were, as Shavi Zane says, know they're no match for what's evolving in creation now. Not with their best witchery, warlocking, manipulation, monopolies, nothing can withstand this force of evolution that's already underway. No one can defer the prophecy at this point. Although it's been delayed and tried to be extinguished, it can't be deferred at this point. So I was sensing like the next point of action would be to weaponize organized religion to be the force field against spirituality. Righteously so, because Christians already feel a great deal threatened and activated against what they perceive to be witchcraft and ungodly energetic expressions. So to heighten that, to almost ignite that force by way of, to righteously ignite that force, as if, there's a call to action to fight an evil that actually doesn't exist, would be the next plan of action for the powers that were, to pretty much throw rocks and hold their hands. And for those that would willfully enlist, they'll be thinking that they're doing God's work against witches and warlocks and demons and ghouls and ghouls, but not knowing that they're actually being activated, battery operated by the actual witches and warlocks and ghouls. You know, like I'm praying against it, that there's enough exposure all around for us to finally be enlightened to not recreate that time frame again for ourselves and create karma that would need to be, you know, rectified yet again. So I believe that there'll be a concession made to keep it from combusting the way that it's intended to, but I already see that being a point of intention, you know, because what better way to fight against the force that you can't beat but to weaponize an enemy that righteously feels indignant to lead the charge, you know, but it's a false pretense of, you know, unfortunately, that some that may enlist blindly or be enlisted may not be aware of, and then in that regard may get themselves killed on the battlefield for a very unrighteous cause, you know, and that would be unfortunate when we could all be mobilizing together regardless of our perspectives of worship and lifestyle and belief and spirituality or religiosity or whatever the case may be, for all of us to champion the revolution for liberation no matter what, because everyone just has the right to it. Hopefully we've all gained that, or we're coming to it, you know. Wow, look at that, the world card. Wow, exactly. To put an end to the karmic hamster wheel and finally progress forward all together now. Maybe not literally at one time, but again, like to continue to flow in that direction of future, not past, to really take inventory of where that has gotten us thus far, to fight over who believes in what and how they do and where they do and when they do, and, you know, to just take a page out of history in every age, to realize that that's never advanced us anywhere. It's only ever been a setback. And we need to smoke out the instigators that continue to provoke that reality and put their asses on the stake. Exactly. To absorb like enough blocked to that cycle reoccurring. Like, no, you're not welcome here. We don't even see you. We don't acknowledge you. You have no power here. At least for your own personal truth, let it be so. You can't control what anybody else subscribes to, but you can certainly control what you give life to or give way to. So if it can start with you to be revolutionary in a righteous way, a truly righteous way, please let it be so. It only takes a few. It only has taken a few, considering the mass of population that inhabits the earth, right? It's only taken a few to submit themselves to this process of cleansing, so to speak, to hold the space for the many. So if that translates across the board, then however it is that you are being the change that you wish to see is making a great deal of impact, more than you could ever imagine. certainly more than it would be otherwise if you didn't. Exactly. Wow. And here's that wonderful feminine force that is secure and self-sufficient, stable, confident, that has earned her leisure with the Nine of Pentacles, you know, that has earned a great deal of equity in spirit that has ultimately transferred into material wealth. That's what this is, literally, but even by itself, but under the High Priestess for sure. And now, you know, as I said, is what? The keeper of that garden. As I was saying before, it's like knowing what to dispense and disperse to whom, for why, for what, how much, how long, you know, knowing exactly what the best investments to make or not is imperative to your spiritual judgment and your natural preservation at this time for yourself and for the legacy that you lead. Because if you're the keeper of the secrets, the inheritance, the resources, the wealth, the intellectual property, the visions, the inhabitants, you know, the seeds, and you squander them, what of the future can we look forward to? It's a great responsibility, you know, a great honor, wonderful dignity in this position, but it does come with a very high level of responsibility and accountability. So as much as it might be a coveted position of power and privilege, is really not for the faint of heart. So for those looking on the outside in, seeing it as any threat or even with any envy, won't even truly realize the burden and the blessing of such an assignment until they fully come through this processing. Because once you come through this processing, you know exactly what shoes you're filling. It's not a game to you. It's not even about a material advancement. It's certainly not about any accolades or, you know, titles or anything like that. It's serious business. And you know that because you know all that you had to submit to just to be considered. It's great toil and labor. So you wouldn't frivolously handle your emergence once you've arrived, because you've done way too much to acquire it. And not only that, through that processing is the grooming of grace and gratitude for the honor itself, because you begin to become more self-aware of all that you truly have to offer, all that you are capable of, you know, to be of service to yourself, but certainly what you have to be of service to creation. And that becomes like a very serious matter for you. If you know, you know. And I'm probably preaching to the choir, so I don't know why, you know, I say what I say, but yeah. But yeah, look at this. Seven of Swords. And again, this is the Six of Cups. This is that nostalgia of a regenerated karmic cycle that some may insist to continue to try to recreate or reestablish in their own frequency, or even think that they are, have the liberty to impose projectively. But we already know the fate of the Seven of Swords. He doesn't get very far. He doesn't get very far at all before he's entangled in whatever it is that he created in his wake. So that means for those that insist to have it, have it the old way. And in this case, like, not everything that is past is obsolete, but when I'm speaking of like regressive energy, it's what's been proven to be unprogressive, unproductive, unprosperous, toxic, even regenerative of trauma and codependency, what's that other word, dysfunctional. Yeah, in a word, dysfunctional for sure. For those that are insistent, that are pledging themselves to dysfunction, they'll continue to just recycle themselves through that process, filtering themselves through that trauma relentlessly until they wring themselves out, or spirit wrings them out. One way or the other is what it gets to be. But this can only be contained where it has, where it's conducive to, I struggle to even say survive, because it's not even like vital anymore to call it survival. It's just where it can exist. Let's put it that way. Wherever it's given space to exist, it will be contained within that reality. But it will no longer have the impact and influence to contaminate the parts of creation that have far surpassed merely existing and ascended onto extraordinary at this point. That's the vibes. Extraordinary. And that's eternal. That never has to stop being, and there's no end point, there is no finish line, there's no containment. It just is. And once it is, it always is. Yeah, wow. That's amazing. Extraordinary is the new age. All right, well, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Until next time, as always, I'll leave you with peace.